Hello and welcome back to Newhouse Esports Update. I'm your host, Andrew Macbeth. Over the last couple episodes, we've been looking at a lot of the in-depth aspects of esports, whether that be tournament results or free agency or even some of the vocabulary that is common in the esports community. However, I think it's important to take a couple steps back and really look at esports in a much broader lens. In this episode, we'll be looking at what a typical esports event and tournament looks like so you can properly know what to expect before watching the stream. We'll also be looking at esports organizations and what the difference is between an organization and a team. There is a key difference and we'll get to that later in the video. But for now, let's take a brief look at what the esports tournament format looks like. Let's start with an example that many of you may be familiar with, a traditional sports postseason format. In a traditional postseason sports format, let's take the NBA playoffs for example, 8 teams from the Western and the Eastern conferences face off against one another in best-of-7 series. Whoever wins 4 games out of 7 first advances, and whoever loses that series gets their season cut short. At the end of the playoffs, the Western and Eastern Conference champions face off in the NBA Finals. Last year, we had the Boston Celtics from the Eastern Conference and the Golden State Warriors from the Western Conference face off in the NBA Finals, with the Warriors walking away as NBA champions. Esports is very similar in this aspect, where there is a regular season and a postseason. The regular season isn't all that different from normal sports, where every team faces every other team and whoever wins the most advances to the postseason. However, the postseason format is slightly different, and we'll go into that right here. The most common postseason esports format is the double elimination bracket. At the beginning of the postseason, every team starts in the upper bracket and face off in best-of-7 or best-of-5 or even best-of-1 series. Teams that win these series advance through the upper bracket, but the teams that lose, instead of being eliminated from the postseason outright, are moved down into the lower bracket. The lower bracket teams then have a tournament of their own in tandem with the upper bracket, where the upper bracket losers are sent down to the lower bracket to face off against the current lower bracket players. Once you lose in the lower bracket, your postseason aspirations are done. At the end of the upper and lower brackets, there is an upper bracket champion and a lower bracket champion, and those two teams face off against each other in the grand finals. Now, the upper bracket champion does get a slight advantage over the lower bracket champion in the sense that they haven't lost yet. They haven't been sent to the lower bracket. So, what the lower bracket champion has to do is defeat the upper bracket champion twice in a row in order to win the grand finals. This format really allows for fan favorites or great organizations that just got unlucky in the first round to come back and fight against the teams that were just not quite good enough in the upper bracket and eventually make their way to the grand finals. Some of the best stories in postseason for esports are teams that have gone all the way through the lower bracket and won in the grand finals. If that's ever happened to your favorite team, it's always a great feeling. Now, I've been throwing around the word team, similar to that of a traditional sports team. However, teams and organizations in the esports world are slightly different. And let's go over some of those examples right now. Let's take a look at Cloud9. Cloud9 is a North American-based esports organization out of California. Cloud9 is one of the most recognizable and popular esports brands across even the whole world. Cloud9 as an organization has different teams with their own players, coaching staff, and media that continue to play in the major tournaments across the world, in games such as League of Legends, Counter-Strike, Rainbow Six Siege, Rocket League, and many more. Let's see how a real-world example would relate to the difference between an esports team and an esports organization. Let's take, for example, the city of Philadelphia. Philadelphia has 5 major sports teams. For hockey, they have the Flyers. For football, the Eagles. For soccer, the Union. For baseball, the Phillies. And for basketball, the 76ers. All 5 of these teams play for the city of Philadelphia, but they all have their own management, players, coaches, and staff that don't play for multiple teams. They only concentrate on the single sport that they play. So in the same way that those teams play for Philadelphia, all of Cloud9's esports teams play for the organization Cloud9. They just send their representatives to their tournaments and try to win under the Cloud9 banner. That's why I, a native of Boston, would like the Boston sports teams to win. And in that same way, a Cloud9 fan might root for Cloud9 across multiple different games, and he'll tune in to every single competition that they go for and raise that Cloud9 flag and hope they pull out the victory. I encourage you to do your research and pick an esports organization to follow for the coming year. It'll make being a fan of esports and an early fan of esports so much more fun if you can just identify a logo and a name and stick with it. Hopefully, they might even win a championship. Alright, you've picked an organization, now what? Well, now's the time to turn on Twitch and YouTube and watch a competition. Now, there's so many different types of video games out there and maybe different genres that you may not even know about. Over the next couple episodes, I'll be digging into the most common esports genres and the most popular games from those genres that you might want to tune in and look out for. I hope to make the viewing process a little more streamlined and a little less overwhelming to the new fans such as yourself. Thank you so much for watching this week's episode of Newhouse Esports Update. Tune in next time when we look at the first of many esports genres.